Hayami Ryuichi is a boxer that was first shown as a prodigy. Up to the point he was introduced, the fastest boxer in the series was Miyata, but Hayami was shown to be as fast, if not faster. He had unspoken riz, speed, confidence, and he was a genius, so how is it that he would become a worn-down shell of his former self? This is the rise and fall of Hayami Ryuichi. Before the series started, Hayami was an amateur boxer with a record of 56 wins with 43 KOs. He also won the Inter-High Championship 3 times in a row. He also ended up defeating a guy called Yoshida twice in a row in the finals for the Inter-High Championship. Fun fact, Yoshida is the guy Kobashi fought in the first round of the Eastern Japan Rookie King tournament. Because of all of these wins, Hayami gained a lot of notoriety before his professional career started, and he would become a playboy as a result. Shortly after all of these wins, Hayami ended up turning pro. He would win his first 2 matches in the first round with relative ease. However, in Hayami's third match, he would win in the third round by KO against an infighter without any real struggle. But Hayami would claim during a post-fight interview that he didn't perform his best in this match, and he also said how easy it is to fight against infighters. And this event would be the foundation for his eventual downfall. After these 3 wins, Hayami would enter the Eastern Japan Rookie King tournament. And because of the amount of amateur wins he has and his appearance, he would be a favorite to win the whole tournament. By the time the tournament started, he would win his first fight with no struggle at all, and by the time his second match came around, he would win that match with no struggle as well. However, in the semi-finals of the tournament, Hayami would end up facing against the main character of the series, Ippo Makinouchi. In preparation for this match, Ippo had spent a lot of time thinking of a game plan against Hayami. Ippo was able to think of this game plan after his rival Miyata came to visit his gym. And Miyata is known for counterpunching, so when Ippo asked what Miyata would do, the obvious response from Miyata was that Miyata would counter Hayami's punches. Though, throughout all the time we've seen Hayami, he's used one signature technique throughout all of his fights, that being the shotgun. The shotgun is a fast barrage of mid-range punches coming from either one or both hands continuously. Ippo, after hearing this, is very confused on what to do, and he continues to study Hayami's fighting style at home. At his house, Ippo is still confused, and he asks his mom if he should follow Miyata's advice. Even though Ippo's mom knows nothing about boxing, she says that he should in fact use a counterpunch against Hayami. And even though Ippo knows he can't counter every punch from the shotgun, he comes up with an idea on what he could counter off Hayami. And the attack Ippo chooses to counter is Hayami's infighter killer, which is his left uppercut. This was shown to us during his 3rd and 5th match, but more specifically his 3rd match when he specifically fought against an infighter. So on fight day against Ippo, what did Hayami do? Well, he actually didn't throw a left uppercut. Hayami actually chose to infight against Ippo to show his superiority. And Hayami actually started to beat Ippo at his own game until Ippo was able to come back and prove that he is in fact better at close range. And after a while, Ippo was able to pressure Hayami back, and inevitably Hayami threw his left uppercut. Ippo was able to counter this, and he ended up staggering Hayami, but he also ended up getting staggered himself. However, Ippo was able to beat Hayami just before the first round ended. And it's obvious that Hayami's ego was a thing to blame for his loss, since he didn't feel like he needed to take the time necessary to prepare against his fight with Ippo. And after this loss, Hayami really wouldn't make any other appearances other than him being in a music video and him being used for power scaling. However, after all of this, Hayami would end up making a comeback and go on to have a 4-match win streak. And he would end up fighting Kobashi for the vacant junior featherweight Japanese title. This match would be similar to his match against Ippo, since at first Hayami ended up taking over, but after this match became a slugfest, Kobashi ended up winning and Hayami lost. And the second Hayami lost, it was pointed out by Hayami's coach, who threw in the towel, that Hayami's chin was never the same after fighting Ippo. And we literally don't see Hayami again for another 928 chapters of the manga. However, we would see him appear again in the manga in chapter 1218. At this time, Ippo was going to debut as a second for Kimura, and he went to go scope out the competition, and there he was. Hayami was shadowboxing, and when he noticed Ippo, he stopped and he went over to go talk to him. They had a cool short conversation about what they're doing right now and what they plan to do. Ippo talked about how he retired and how he's currently scouting for Kimura. Hayami talked about how he has the talent but has never even held a national belt before, and that no matter how many times he loses, he has big expectations of himself so that he can become a legend. Ippo thinks about how Hayami hasn't changed at all, and Hayami asks Ippo if he's going to cheer for him, and Ippo says of course. Afterwards, we see Hayami waiting calmly in the waiting room, just waiting for him to be called up for his fight. And even though we don't see the exact start of the match, when Ippo runs out to see what's happening, we see Hayami using the shotgun immediately. And Itagaki is surprised by Hayami's speed, and Ippo says that Hayami's sharp and even sharper than before. We see Hayami completely dominating the start of the match, and he's even getting cheered for, which is probably by girls. Itagaki claims that Hayami's speed is almost as fast as his, but Aoki says that Hayami is faster. Hayami is having such an easy time in this match that his opponent begins second-guessing himself almost immediately. Ippo claims that by judging by Hayami's opponent's face, that his opponent has already run out of options. Hayami can only think about how he has to put on a good show because he knows that Ippo is watching. Hayami's opponent begins to get more desperate and he tries pushing in, however Hayami is able to hit him through all the gaps in his guard. And even Ippo is convinced that this is Hayami's comeback. The first round ended, and when the second round started, Hayami continues going on an assault. Hayami appears to be in top form and he continues using the shotgun. We see Itagaki and Aoki check Hayami's pro rank, and we see that he's not even ranked at all because, well, he has 8 wins and 11 losses. This shows us how much Hayami has suffered after his loss to Kobashi, and we see Hayami's opponent try to make a desperate comeback. However, Hayami cancels his opponent's attack, and we see Ippo say that he also has big expectations for Hayami. And we even see Kobashi watching this match, and we see that he notices the reason Hayami's fighting so hard is because Ippo is cheering for him. In this match, we see Hayami's psyche, and he wonders where was his mistake and where did he go wrong. Was it when he lost to Kobashi? Was it when he lost to Ippo? To Hayami, it doesn't matter exactly where he went wrong, because he believes that he can make a comeback with no mistakes at all. And when his opponent makes a large, desperate swing, Hayami puts everything he has into a counterpunch. All his feelings, all his pain, all his suffering. And it connects perfectly. That is, until Hayami ends up falling to his knees and his opponent is standing up. Itagaki claims that Hayami was grazed on the chin while trying to land his counterpunch. Hayami gets up and he says that he has nothing to worry about since this is a situation he's familiar with. Now he just doesn't have to make any more mistakes. Hayami says that he can feel the crowd getting worried, but he still wants to put a show on, and he begins to use the shotgun again, and he says he will shine on as a legend. Hayami claims that he's a natural genius and that he is exactly like the dragon he's named after, since Ryu in Ryuichi means dragon. And Hayami's about to throw a punch and fight it out against his opponent, but he gets severely countered, and Hayami wonders in his head where did he go wrong as his head gets snapped back and forth, and he ends up losing the match. Ippo, Kobashi, and Limura discuss what just happened outside, and they talk about when boxers should retire. Is it when they accumulate too much damage? Is it when they're satisfied? Ippo says that Hayami said that he will become a legend, and Takamura interrupts, saying that he is a legend, since he is the legendary Junker. We don't see Hayami again for like 3 more chapters, since Ippo was debuting as a second for Kimura. After Kimura's match, we see all of the Kamigawa gym boys outside having a crazy time. But a man yells in the distance if they could all shut up, and Takamura asks him if he knows who he's talking to. The man that yelled at them was Hayami, and Ippo holds back Takamura as he apologizes for being so loud. Ippo asks Hayami what he's doing outside all alone, and Hayami says that he was reflecting and deliberating on his next win, for his next match. As Hayami walks off, Aoki tells Hayami that he should quit for his own good. Hayami turns around and begins yelling about how he will become a legend and that he will become one now to pay back everyone who's cheered for him for this long. And Hayami even ends up snapping at Ippo, asking if he's okay demoting himself to a support role since Ippo is now a coach. Ippo doesn't reply at all and instead just continues looking at Hayami with a very stern look on his face. Hayami is very disturbed by this look and he tells Ippo to not look at him like that and to stop it. Takamura ends up stepping in and he ends up reassuring Hayami that after tonight's performance, it's unquestionable that he is a legend. Hayami takes this to heart value and is thankful for a champion to say that, and he says that he doesn't deserve such honor. However, he will be sure to fire up Takamura once again. Hayami doesn't know this, but the real reason Takamura said that was because he is in the Champion music video that the Kamigawa boys would do karaoke to. And before Hayami walks off, he asks Ippo if he really isn't returning to the ring, and when Ippo says that he has no reason to return, Hayami waves his arm off and says, "I see. Well, no helping it then." This is the last that we see of Hayami in the manga, and the fact that he's a silhouette walking off while waving his arm is probably safe to assume we won't see him again. Now, all of Hayami's on-screen losses follow the same pattern of him dominating the fight at first before losing in a slugfest. Therefore, I think it's safe to assume that all of Hayami's off-screen losses follow the same pattern as well. For this section of the video, I want to talk about the symbolism behind Hayami's character. Of course, none of this is probably going to be right, but it's just my interpretation. I believe that Hayami is a victim of abuse, more specifically, substance abuse. Obviously, Hayami isn't doing drugs, but to him, his substance is boxing. Hayami is obsessed with reaching the glory he once had, which is backed up by all the times he said that he'll become a legend. To him, that thought of glory is what keeps him going, and for many substance addicts, they never end up reaching the same high that they first had at the start. But that's just my more abstract thought of it. It's more obvious to think that Hayami is a mirror image of our real world, and he symbolizes boxers who fight way past their prime and boxers who are washed up. Or maybe Hayami symbolizes the true interpretation of willpower in this series. Every time Hayami loses, he thinks about how next time he will win for sure and he will become a legend. But this cycle is full of lies. It is only a downward spiral for Hayami. He has nothing to prove to anyone anymore. But who says you have to prove anything to anyone in this world? Hayami knows this better than anyone. The fact that his body and mind is left damaged worse after every loss he takes shows that he doesn't care. He doesn't care about how these losses affect his reputation, because he is the one that set out these big expectations for himself. In life, it's okay to give up. Giving up means that you've reached your limit, and that's okay. You are human. You are only capable of accomplishing so much in life. However, Hayami doesn't believe in this. Hayami's ego and narcissism has evolved to the point where he is convinced that he is meant for greatness. Hayami will keep going until he proves to himself that he is a legend. And after everything I've said, if you don't think that Hayami is the definition of willpower and carrying on, then I don't know what is. So if you made it this far, I would like to hear any of your thoughts on this video or anything in general. And on that note, this is Mex signing off. It's been real.